First, though, the Labour Party has accused the Conservatives of presiding over a zombie government, claiming that they've given up on governing. Ahead of tomorrow's King's Speech, new data shows Conservative MPs have been sent home early in 5 out of every 10 days Parliament sat in the last year.
Well, joining us now is the Labour MP, Shadow Leader of the House of Commons, Lucy Powell. Lucy Powell, good morning to you. Are you accusing the Tories then of being work shy?
Well, I'm accusing them of having run out of ideas and run out of road, and they've really given up on the idea of governing. We were, unfortunately, sent home early, if you like, nearly half of the parliamentary days in the last session. And tomorrow we begin a new parliamentary session with a King's Speech, which will probably be Rishi Sunak's only King's Speech. It's a really powerful moment in the political calendar where you get to decide what laws of the country are going to get changed. And this Prime Minister and this government seem to have run out of ideas of what to do, because we really are seeing quite thin gruel coming forward with a number of measures that they don't even need to do anyway. And they've really run out of ideas. So we say, look, if you've not got time to fill the parliamentary calendar, if you haven't got things that you really want to do to change this country for the good, then why don't you call a general election and let somebody else come in and do that job instead?
Lucy, this is absolutely astonishing. When I read this analysis this morning, particularly considering that there are certain members of the Cabinet Office who are very, very quick to criticise people for a working from home culture or working a 4-day week and having flexible jobs, and they themselves haven't even been turning up. Why are they doing this? And do you think this is something that will be set to change or potentially even get worse in the run-up to the election?
Well, they're doing it because clearly they haven't got enough legislation to bring forward. So things that they promised they would do, they're now not doing. They had to change their minds on a number of things. So instead of, as I say, a really compelling argument for how things need to change in this country, you're bringing in new laws so that we've got energy independence, tackling crime and antisocial behaviour, dealing with the NHS waiting lists, get our country growing again with more homes and affordable homes. Loads of things that we could be doing right now with our parliamentary time to change the laws of this country, to bring about the change that people want to see. But this government, partly because they're so weak, they can't agree things amongst themselves, partly because they've run out of ideas of what to do. Essentially, they've been letting MPs clock off early because there isn't enough parliamentary business to do. So I was as astonished as you were. I asked the library to do this research for me, and I thought the figure would come back a lot lower. But to find that it's nearly 50% of our parliamentary sitting days in the last year and a half, we finished early, I found pretty remarkable as well.
So will this change under a Labour government, Lucy? A bag full of sizzling policies ready to go? Cramming the day from noon till night, is that the plan?
Well, hopefully not noon till midnight, because those days are gone. We're a little bit more family friendly now. Getting back to your earlier discussion, but absolutely, we're fizzing with ideas. We've got a plan to fix this country around our 5 missions, and each of those missions, whether that's to fix the NHS, to sort out education, crime, disorder, to bring about energy independence and get GB Energy, get the country growing and the economy growing. Each of those things, we've got a worked up plan for what we would need to do to change legislation and laws of this country. And yes, I've been telling colleagues that unfortunately after the election this is going to change, and they're going to have to get used to the idea of being around Parliament a lot more and a lot longer in order to pass all these really important pieces of legislation that we need to do. So we're fizzing with ideas. We've got a worked up plan ready to go about how we want to change the country. And I think that does stand in stark contrast to this government that's given up on governing and run out of road and run out of ideas.
Lucy, just moving on to a different story now. There's obviously been a lot of controversy over your leader, Keir Starmer, and his refusal to call for a ceasefire in Gaza and Israel. Are you concerned that your party are going to be losing some crucial votes in the run-up to the next general election because of his stance on Gaza?
Well, look, I mean, Keir Starmer and all of us in the shadow cabinet and elsewhere, we don't make these decisions and we don't have these discussions that are very important foreign affairs and humanitarian discussions. We don't have those in the context of what would be more of a vote winner or otherwise. But what we do take very seriously is the whole view of the Labour movement, Labour activists, Labour councillors. And of course, we don't want to see people leaving the Labour Party as a result. I think what everybody in the Labour Party, from Keir Starmer right through to our activists and members on the ground, none of us want to see this violence in Israel and Gaza continue. We don't want to see loss of life. We don't want to see violence happening. We can all agree on that. And I think what we can also all agree on is that in the end, this will only end because there is a peaceful political two-state solution to what is happening in Israel and Gaza. And those two things are sort of fundamental to the Labour Party. I think where there is a differing of opinion is about exactly how we get there. And Keir Starmer's talking about a humanitarian pause as the most practical, the most likely, the most quick and effective way of getting aid in, of getting hostages released, of taking that moment for breathing space to allow some of this other diplomacy to bring about some kind of lasting peaceful solution to that region.
And just another domestic issue, Lucy Powell, while you're with us. This weekend, of course, coming. Armistice Day on Saturday. There are pro-Palestinian protests planned for that day. There is a lot of disquiet. Suella Braverman has made her points known on this. Where do you stand? Where do Labour stand on this? Should those protests be allowed to go ahead on that day?
Well, look, this weekend and Armistice Day is such an important day in the calendar, and like many of your viewers, I will be paying my respects at the Cenotaph here in Manchester next weekend. And people have, for decades, taken that moment to pay our respects to all of those who've fallen in both the world wars and many wars since. But people do have a right to protest. But my understanding is, and I think this is what Labour wants to see, is that any other protests that are planned for those days take place far and away from any cenotaph or armistice memorial service, and take place at a completely different time of day as well, because we can't see our Armistice and our Remembrance Sunday events being disrupted by other protests. That would not be acceptable. But we do respect people's right to protest. And my understanding is, from talking to our shadow defence secretary and hearing him on the news yesterday, is that these events will be able to take place separately and at different times.
Well, Lucy Powell, thank you so much for joining us this morning.